Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Reading Between the Lines. I am your host, the Water Dog, and today we're doing a 4-pack. I got a grab bag of some stuff for you to look at today, man. But before I do that, do me the kind favor of hitting up my sponsor, KGS Cards. Go to www.kgs-cards.com, and right there, brother, place yourself an order, and you can get yourself some promo cards, a 3rd tradition Progeny and a 4th tradition The Accounting. That's right. KGS Cards. Man, they did a good job, man. I love Carl's service. Now, this grab bag is going to be, I know I rehash a lot of cards. I do. But I play with them. And, you know, one of the things about doing this 4-pack is these are cards that are currently indexed. And I'm playing with these cards, and I'm seeing good results. And I fathom as to, you know, why I don't see them as often as I do. But there you go. So I'm going to kind of keep pushing it. So let's start off with another great Water Dog card, Confusion of the Eye. All right. It's a reaction card. It's an obfuscate card. Okay. At the inferior, you reduce a younger vampire or an ally's bleed against you by 1. So typically, at worst, for the most part, you can bleed reduced by 1. At the superior is the key. Only usable during a referendum before any votes and ballots are cast. Not usable on a referendum that is automatically passing. The acting vampire cannot cast any votes or ballots in this referendum. If the referendum requires titled vampires, the referendum fails. Now, I'm going to be getting to a video here at some point. I'm working on a Nosferatu video, and we'll get into that. But I like this card in a Nosferatu deck, and just putting a couple of them in there because Nosferatu's one of its major disciplines is obfuscate, and it just tears up votes, man. It tears up. So especially if you're having to deal with an Iron Fist, okay, it deals with it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just a great reaction card against votes. And so if I'm running decks that have obfuscate, to put 2 of these as reactionary is never a bad deal, okay? So if I'm playing Ministry, not a bad idea. Playing Bonai King, not a bad idea, okay? And so if I'm looking at using that obfuscate a discipline as a reaction, this is a great card for it. Especially with as much voting and stuff that's going on around right now, you can't go wrong with this card. I love it. I can't tell you, how many times I've kind of stopped the vote simply by using it. And don't forget, the acting vampire cannot cast any votes. And so typically speaking, it's the acting vampire that's going to generate the most votes. So if they try to do bewitching oration and they try to do all that pumping, all of that sudden, you can negate all that by playing this beforehand. All of a sudden they're like, well, now all of that stuff is useless cards in their hand, okay? Because the key to this is playing this, you got to play it before, any votes and ballots are cast, okay? And so it does get them hand stuck to a certain degree. All of a sudden they're stuck with some things that they thought that maybe they can unload to draw into the next vote or something like that. But there's just a lot of good things about using Confusion of the Eye and, deterring the vote, hurting them with cards. All of those things fall into play. And then at the minimum, at the inferior, okay, you can reduce the bleed. I talked about this card. I was going all the way back. The second video I ever made for VTES, okay, was obfuscate cards, and this was one of them, okay, that I had talked about way back then. So if you go back to video number 2 and you go look at my obfuscate card video, you'll see this is one of the cards to talk about because I play with this card in an obfuscate deck. It's just really, really good. And so I always like, for the most part, you can't put these cards in every deck, but for the most part, man, if I got 2 slots, Confusion of the Eye goes into those 2 slots. All right. Let's go to another one. Card number 2, Flames of the Netherworld. Okay, this is going to have a Daemon discipline and a Thaumaturgy discipline. Okay, and what we're really going to look at this card as is we're really going to look at it from the Thaumaturgy standpoint, because there's so many vampires out there that have that inferior Thaumaturgy, and being able to stick this into a deck just to have a little fun with it always works. At the inferior, only usable at long range, burn 1 blood to strike 1 ranged aggravated damage. That's it. And so now you can do that thaumaturgy aggravated damage, because sometimes a lot of those cards, you have to wait and do it in the next round of combat in order to do the aggravated damage. Well, with this, you can burn, 1 blood and you can do aggravated damage. Granted, you got to be at long range, but it works really, really good. Of course, if you're going to use the demonic stuff, then you can just strike 1 aggravated damage. That's superior. You can strike for 1 at the inferior, and then for the superior, you can strike for 1 ranged aggravated damage. But most of the time, I'm going to stick this into a deck with thaumaturgy, okay? Simply because I want to be able to use that and be able to do, in the first round, be able to do that aggravated damage. And so that's why I like it. Here we go, card number 3, Marked Path, another obfuscate card. This is an action modifier, only usable after a successful directed action. So when you're successful, this is when you play it. At the inferior, put this card on the acting vampire during an action directed at the same Methuselah or same set of Methuselahs, depending upon what took place. This vampire may burn this card to get +1 stealth, and at the superior, you can burn it to get +2 stealth. And so you can place that onto your vampire so that you can use that, as needed, okay? It's also a way to cycle a stealth card. Obfuscate, one of the problems with Obfuscate is that it's very difficult to cycle some of its cards. This is a way to kind of have a stealth that kind of makes your opponent also a little weary. All of a sudden they know that you can burn that card for the stealth. They might want to try to force you to burn the card. It just causes problems, but it's just a good way to get it. And not to mention, gets a card out of your hand. You're able to cycle some cards. I like the card. Playing with just a couple. I wouldn't play with a whole lot in a deck, but like I said, a lot of times with a lot of the cards that I'm showing you in these 4-packs, they're just great 2-ofs. You just put 2 of in a deck and you go with it from there. And so Marked Path, 2 of them in an obfuscate deck, especially if you're doing like a stealth bleed deck. There you go. Because a lot of times you just want to be able to attach that and be able to rock and roll. So there you go. Marked Path. Alrighty, last card. Perfect Clarity. Action modifier, going to cost you 2 blood. Only usable when the action is announced. At the inferior thaumaturgy, reaction cards that require dominate or presence do not affect this vampire for the duration of this action. At the superior, as above, and for the remainder of this action, minions opposing this vampire in combat cannot play cards that require dominate or presence. Okay? So there's a lot of things going on with this particular card. Number one is that it does help you against, dominate bounce. So they're not, if you're playing against the dominate bleed deck, it helps you where you don't have to worry about dealing with it. Okay? The other thing is it helps you in the combat sense that if you're going into combat, now all of a sudden, especially with the presence, they can't majesty. Okay, so the majesty doesn't hit off and stuff. And so it's a card, like I said, just 2. I would probably play with 2 at the most. It's a unique niche card. I play with it here and there. I've got them in a couple of decks right now, and it's only come up once for me so far. But I've been playing them. I've been putting a couple of them in, and I like the card. I'm really kind of seeing if it's going to go where I would like for it to go. You never know. But I can't complain so far because it did protect me from a bounce. You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, the player couldn't bounce, and I'm able to get my bleed through and do some damage. And so that was one of the big upsides of using that particular card. That's it, brother. That's all I got time for you, man. That's the 4-pack for today. I am the Water Dog. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care. Hey, man, thanks for watching Reading Between the Lines. If you'll do me the kind favor, if you look right there. You see that little circle? That says subscribe. Hit that subscribe button for me. I appreciate it. Underneath that, that's a playlist. So if you want to watch more videos, hit the playlist. It's not complicated. It's real simple. Subscribe. Playlist. Subscribe. Playlist.